Welcome back to First in Preparedness, and on this episode today we're going to show you how to actually properly dry lube your AR. Now what I have here in front of me is some interesting substances. This off to my left is what's known as tungsten disulfide, chemical name WS2. To my right here I have some simple 91% rubbing alcohol. I'm going to magically make this rifle very dry lubed when I show you what we're going to do here. Now, to give you a little bit of background, what tungsten disulfide actually is. It's one of the slickest substances known to man. It equals that of molybdenum, or MOS2, molybdenum disulfide. And it plays much better with aluminum than graphite. I know some people say, oh, well, graphite's ultimate lube. No, it's not. It's actually not good for aluminum. This, however, will play with just about anything. To give you a little bit of background on my history on tungsten disulfide, back in my days of auto racing, one of the only ways you could get an IndyCar wheel bearing to live is by using this that was infused in grease. Like grease, not this country, but actual stuff grease. So basically what IndyCar teams were doing was mixing this with grease. And wheel bearings could take a tremendous amount of pressure. To give you a little bit of chemical background on what tungsten disulfide or some of the properties that it has is it, once you've coated the surface of a metal, it will basically take 300,000 psi to strip tungsten disulfide off of the surface of the part that you're trying to make slick. This stuff is completely inert. You could probably eat it. It's non-toxic, and it is attracted very well to its substrate metal. I guess to put it mildly, you can put this on just about anything you need to lubricate, and it will do its job. The concept is, or how this stuff actually works, have you ever gone for a hike in like a live oak forest? And you know those nice little hard oval leaves that are on the ground and they pile up on top of each other? Well, if you've ever hiked on those, you know that if they are piled several deep, you slip very easily on them. And that is basically what tungsten disulfide does at a microscopic level. It basically creates a layer of plates after plates after plates, and those slide very easily against each other. The other good news is this is compatible with any oil. So if you coat your parts with tungsten disulfide and then add oil on top of it, that oil will not strip the tungsten disulfide layer off of that metal, which is pretty cool stuff. In fact, the only thing that will attack WS2 is highly acidic or highly basic chemical makeups, or pH levels. I can't get the right words out for that, but basically, you don't want to put strong acids or strong bases on it. That will strip it off. Other than that, feel free to dry lube the surfaces of your gun or, sliding parts. There's no use doing it on non-sliding parts. And feel free to add lube to it. Now, in the event your gun runs dry and it is coated with tungsten disulfide, you will not experience wear. It's pretty cool stuff. Feel free to do your research. There's a couple of companies that sell various applications of this. One of them is like lowerfriction.com. I think has basically like this, a dry form of powder. They also sell an aerosol spray version of it. But what we're going to do today is basically apply it using rubbing alcohol, because rubbing alcohol obviously evaporates completely, and some tungsten disulfide, and some Q-tips. Other than that, we're going to actually burnish the tungsten disulfide into the surface of my, or the sliding surfaces of my bolt carrier group. We're basically going to polish those with tungsten disulfide, which is going to leave a nice shiny layer, and it's going to be extremely slick. So let's get started. So here it is. Let me open this up and let me show you what tungsten disulfide looks like. Basically looks like kind of a dark gray kind of gunmetal granular powder. And next I have some 91% rubbing alcohol. You'll also see that I have some convenient Q-tips here. And lastly, I have a small piece of what's known as polishing Scotch-Brite. This is not an abrasive level, but it's just a polishing. Now, one of the ways to apply tungsten disulfide is known as burnishing. So basically, you're scrubbing the tungsten disulfide into the surface. Now, what I'm going to focus on here in this first example is simply the rails of the bolt carrier group here. I'm going to try to apply some tungsten disulfide on here. Now, there's several different ways you can buy this stuff. I think there's an aerosol version of it, but it does have some carrier or something that keeps it in suspension. But I'm going to apply it this way because alcohol completely evaporates, basically leaving all the tungsten disulfide behind and working that into this surface here. Once that's done, and once I kind of work it into this surface here, I'm then going to apply a new wet layer onto here and then actually work the bolt back and forth. So I basically, in essence, burnish that into these bearing surfaces. After that, I'm going to apply some of this tungsten disulfide kind of paste that you mix with rubbing alcohol and this, and apply it to the back of the bolt, and once again, work that into the chamber. Lastly, I'm going to take out this cam pin and then, of course, coat that so that all these bearing surfaces are, of course, super slick. Now, this is a very easy process. All we're going to do, get our little Q-tip here, wet it with some alcohol, stick it in here. Guess what? Look what happens. Picks up that tungsten disulfide nicely. We're then going to rub that on this surface here. I don't know if you can see it up close, but you can see there's kind of these clumps on here. That's okay. We're then going to do it to this side. Let that kind of get on there. Then we're going to take our little piece of Scotch-Brite, and we're basically just going to rub that on there. Now, the good news about tungsten disulfide, it is completely inert. You could theoretically eat this stuff, and it will not hurt you. Now, if you can see that, do you see how that bearing surface is now shiny? Well, guess what? All that is basically a tungsten disulfide media that's been applied to that bearing surface. Next, we're going to grab a little bit more. You can see it on there. We're just going to polish it into that surface. Like I said, this is not an abrasive Scotch-Brite, but you can see it kind of scrubs it into that surface. Now, as I said before, this is highly attracted to its parent metal. So as you can see, it's starting to become kind of shiny. We're going to do this surface here. Just work it into that surface. Now, I know that there are some competition shooters that actually coat their bullets in this stuff and use a vibratory polisher with BBs to actually put this stuff on their actual competition bullets. That, I guess, increases the life of their barrels. And I guess, I don't think it makes the bullet necessarily travel any faster. But I'm going to work that into this surface here. You can see it there. Work it to the front of the bolt. I'm going to put that back and just work that slowly into that surface, polish that up. And it doesn't take much. I know that there's a way to basically air blast this onto a surface as well. But for our purposes, this will be fine. Now you can see where it's kind of here, where it kind of, if you get this powder on you, it looks like really nasty stuff, but it washes off very easily, at least off your skin. The metal, it doesn't release from very easily. Now the shear strength of this is incredibly high. if you look, I think it's somewhere like 125,000 pounds of force going down and sliding to actually remove this from the surface. It's also highly resilient to oils. So even if you put oil on this, it's not going to take that off the surface. Now, it is important that you do degrease these surfaces before you treat them with tungsten disulfide. So kind of get some brake clean, wipe these off, then rub your tungsten disulfide into that surface, and it's going to adhere to that very, very well. And it's going to stay on there. Heck, maybe I'll even do the bottom of the bolt here. Like I said, it does stick to this metal very, very well. Now I'm going to grab a paper towel and basically show you that this does not come off. It is extremely, the bond between the parent metal and this are extremely strong. And I mean, you can take your finger and feel how slick those surfaces are. They are not, you feel no abrasives, or the mu is very, very low on this. So let's just put a little bit more on here, and then we're going to work that into the upper itself to kind of burnish this into the upper as well. I'm just going to get some loose pieces here, and then I'm going to put it into the bolt and work it back and forth so that this actually coats the upper as well. And so here we go. We've got a little bit of extra tungsten disulfide on these rails. I got a dry upper. Going to feed that in. And then I'm going to work that back and forth and deposit that other tungsten disulfide here in the upper. You can actually feel there, I mean, despite being a totally dry gun, this thing is moving extremely easy, like it was oiled. So now I'm going to take it back apart and show you how polished those edges are. Let me squish this down, get the stupid bolt out. And you can see these still have the tungsten disulfide on there, which is what I wanted, and shiny. Now I can go ahead and add some oil to this, and it will obviously increase the lubricity of it, but it adds that extra layer of protection as well to that bolt in the case the gun actually runs dry. So despite being kind of dull here, kind of shiny here, that bolt, those rails are pretty shiny. Burnish that in, and that is it. You have a lubed bolt at this point. Now, if I want to lube the back of these lugs or make them a little bit slicker, as I explained before, there is a tremendous amount of force that goes through the gas tube and then pushes the bolt carrier back and then tries to twist this basically against the chamber. So let's go ahead and make that a little more slick. Just going to add a little bit of tungsten disulfide to the back of this bolt here, or to the back of these lugs, and once again work that into the chamber itself so that the back of the chamber lugs is also lubed up. Go ahead and put that back in, put the upper back on the lower. Don't mind me, I'm getting tungsten disulfide all over this gun. And I tend to try to pull kind of one direction on the charging handle and then the other. So I'll put force either on this side or this side. And kind of make sure that works in there. And let's take it back apart. And there you go. You can see it. I don't know if you can kind of see it here on the bolt. I hate that autofocus. But you can see those kind of gunmetal gray back of the lugs. That basically means the tungsten disulfide is deposited on there. There's the shiny parts on the rails. And that is it. This basically at this point, I'm probably going to add off camera, add some tungsten disulfide in the cam areas of the cam pin here to make that nice and slick as well. So there it is. Tungsten disulfide. Well, folks, there it is again. My favorite dry lube slick stuff, tungsten disulfide. Non-toxic, very easy to work with, doesn't go away, extremely tough, and easy to apply. There it is. That is the dry lube secret. Like I said, this stuff is available. This is a laboratory grade. It's a half pound of it. Probably going to last me the rest of my life. And that's all we have for you here today on First in Preparedness. Thank you for tuning in, and keep your guns lubed, even if they're dry. Well, there it is. My take on the Well, there it is. My take on the best dry lube that exists in the known universe at this point. Tungsten disulfide. Now, as I stated before, this can be picked up for some small amount of money. This tub will probably last me the rest of my life and treat every firearm that I have. And it's easy to apply. Rubbing alcohol, some Q-tips, little piece of polishing cloth here, and you can dry lube all of your weapons, and it is compatible with lubrication. Now, there are some things that can remove tungsten disulfide from the surface of another metal. That of which, of course, is a heavy acidic or heavy basic solution. But for the most part, if you treat your guns and rail surfaces with tungsten disulfide, it is compatible with lubrication. It will actually not strip it off of that surface. That tungsten disulfide will sit there. And also what will happen is if there is any actual metal-to-metal contact, is those little tiny little plates will slide against each other and save wear on your weapon. Absolutely incredible stuff. Feel free to do your own research on tungsten disulfide, otherwise known as WS2. You will find its properties are absolutely amazing. Not only that, some things I would caution against. Some people say, well, graphite's pretty similar in terms of lubricity, but graphite does not play well with aluminum, especially as it comes to uppers, and if there is any exposed aluminum where the anodizing has rubbed off, graphite does not do well with that. Whereas tungsten disulfide is completely compatible with aluminum, with steel, titanium, Inconel, just about any metal. In fact, any metal is compatible with tungsten disulfide as well. There is our wonderful tip. There is our wonderful tip and episode for today. Thank you for tuning in here to First in Preparedness, and lube everything you have.